Milady, this corset is a size 2. You are emotionally a size 2. Silence. Now pull. Is that my lung in my throat or just optimism? You're turning purple, ma'am. That's just the color of royalty. Keep going. I feel like a sexy sausage. So corsets have been around for centuries, but they really got popular in Europe around the 16th century and hit their peak during the Victorian era, the time when people were casually dropping dead from bad air and doctors still thought cocaine was a cough medicine. Good times. Fashion back then wasn't about comfort or practicality. It was about looking like you've never had a sandwich in your life. These things were built like Iron Man's chest piece. Whalebone, steel, tightly woven fabric. Nothing says sexy like a ribcage prison. Women would lace that sucker up until the waist was 16 inches wide, which is about the size of a 2-liter soda bottle. Corsets didn't just squish the waist, they messed up the whole body. Internal organs, shoved around like the junk drawer I keep telling myself I'll clean up over the weekend. One doctor in the 1800s, legit, described a woman's liver after years of corset use as being displaced and malformed. Ribs were permanently bent inward. One autopsy revealed a liver that had grown a dent in it. A dent because of fashion. Women would faint constantly, not because they were delicate princesses, but because they literally couldn't breathe. That's where the whole fainting couch thing comes in. So yeah, Victorian folks invented the fainting couch, a half couch, half ambulance kind of deal. So ladies could flop down gracefully after passing out because fashion was straight up strangling them. Instead of, I don't know, ditching the damn corsets, they just whipped up this weird little furniture piece to catch their swooning princesses. It's kind of like when you're struggling to fall asleep at night because you're glued to your phone screen, and instead of just putting the phone down, you pop some sleeping pills. Maybe you're even doing that right now. But hey, watch till the end before you toss your phone aside. And adults weren't the only ones who were wearing these things. Girls as young as 4 were being stuffed into training corsets, because apparently childhood scoliosis was just part of the aesthetic. This wasn't just upper-class nonsense. Women across social classes were corseting up. Servants wore looser versions, but they still wore them. Doctors tried to speak up, hey, maybe don't crush your torso like a soda can, but nobody cared. During the French Revolution, corsets were briefly considered symbols of aristocratic oppression and even got banned. But fashion is stubborn. Corsets came back really fast. By the late 1800s, they were everywhere again, and with even tighter designs. Eventually, corsets died off in the 20th century. When flapper girls came in, the world slowly began to realize that having a functional lung or two is actually kind of lit. Thankfully, by the early 1900s, corsets started to fall out of fashion, replaced by girdles, and eventually more modern undergarments. Though let's not pretend the pressure disappeared. It just shapeshifted into Spanx, Photoshop, and TikTok filters. In 16th century England, Queen Elizabeth I set the tone for what beauty meant, and it meant looking like a well-lit ghost. Pale skin wasn't just fashionable, it was a status symbol. Being pale meant you didn't work outdoors, which meant you were rich enough to sit around writing bad poetry and wait for the next social season. Suntans? That was peasant energy. Elizabeth had smallpox scars, and rather than letting anyone see her actual face, she turned to what was basically the Renaissance version of concealer, a white paste made of vinegar, egg whites, and white lead. Actual toxic metal. Straight up poison. So what's this for again? Some kind of curse? It's Queen's makeup. Wait, this? Yep. Vinegar, egg whites, and just a scoop of white lead. Lead. Like the thing we use to kill rats? Shh, man. Say that louder, and it's your head in the basket next to her blush brush. They called it Venetian ceruse, and it was all the rage. The smoother and paler your skin looked, the better. Didn't matter that it gave you black teeth, bleeding gums, brain damage, or slowly rotted your skin off your skull, looking like an alabaster statue with anemia was totally worth it. And it didn't stop there. If your eyebrows or hairline didn't match the whole pale, ethereal, undead vibe, no worries, they just plucked them off. Entire foreheads shaved to give the illusion of a bigger, more noble brain. These women layered it. Day after day, slap on some more ceruse because the last layer had cracked off overnight and probably left a patch of exposed, irritated skin screaming for help. And also the lead makeup caused rashes, blistering, and sometimes full-on skin loss. So what did they use to cover up the lead damage? More lead makeup. It was a vicious, ghostly, metallic cycle. You'd be decaying in real time, but as long as you looked good while doing it, society approved. Milady, your cheek's peeling again. Bit of your face is on the pillow. Ah, splendid. Fetch the lead. But your grace, the last layer melted off your nose. Then double it. Give me a makeup nose. Make it snatched. Perfect. Men weren't exactly paragons of health either, but they didn't suffer the same toxic makeup expectations. A man could have scars, pockmarks, or look like he just crawled out of a tavern and still be considered dashing. Meanwhile, Elizabethan women were slowly becoming Walking Dead zombies. Eventually, people started catching on that maybe smearing death cream on your face every day wasn't great, but not fast enough. The use of ceruse lasted well into the 17th century. Some historians even think that long-term exposure to this stuff contributed to Elizabeth's declining health later in life. And the crazy part is that the damn thing worked. For a while, at least. You'd look like a flawless porcelain doll with no pores and a receding hairline. In ancient China, around the 10th century, Song dynasty ruled the kingdom. Pan Yunu, the favorite consort of the southern Chai emperor Xiao Baojuan, performed a dance barefoot on a floor decorated with the design of a golden lotus. The emperor, expressing admiration, "Lotus feet is lit." And that's all it took. Cultural obsession. Because if there's one thing history teaches us, it's that if a man in power likes something weird, suddenly everybody has to do it. Now, the goal was to have feet that were 3 inches long. That's not a foot. That's a fun-sized Kit Kat bar. That was considered the ideal. They even had a name for it, the Golden Lotus, which sounds like a fancy perfume, but it's just pain, broken bones, and permanent disability bottled and rebranded as elegance. So here's how it worked. Step 1, start young, like really young, as in 4 to 6 years old, because their bones were still soft and breakable. Step 2, soak the feet in hot water and soften the skin. Step 3, break the arch of the foot, intentionally, deliberately, full on snap, crackle, pop. Step 4, fold the toes under the sole of the foot and tie them down with tight bandages. They'd basically force the foot into a crescent shape. Step 5, rebandage every day, tighter and tighter until the bones stopped protesting and just gave up. Hey mom, I think I heard a crunch. That's just the sound of you becoming beautiful, sweetie. But this hurts. Of course it does. Do you think lotuses grow in silk pillows? No. They bloom in mud, pain, and generational trauma. Now stop whining and fold your toes like a good little flower. Why do I have to do this again? Because one day, a wealthy man with the emotional maturity of a damp towel will marry you, and when he sees your feet, shaped like dumplings run over by a carriage, he'll say, "My little dumpling." And you can live a comfortable life. This wasn't just fashion, it was status. Having bound feet was seen as elegant, refined, and most importantly, marriage material. A woman with lotus feet was considered more desirable, more ladylike, because it meant she couldn't work. She couldn't even walk properly. She had to shuffle around like a penguin in Jimmy Choo's. And that meant she was probably rich enough to not need to do manual labor. Quick side note. Look at this cutie walking. Let's take a look at these shoes. These weren't sneakers or comfy house slippers. These were tiny embroidered nightmares. They'd stitch elaborate designs on them to show off how pretty their mangled foot prisons were. This was horrible. Infections were constant. Ingrown toenails were seen every day. Oh my god, my toe just fell off. We gotta get you to a doctor. Why the heck would I do that? Now my foot's even smaller. Some girls' toes would literally rot and fall off. They called that lucky, because it made the foot even smaller. Yucky yuck. And don't think this was just a short-lived phase. This went on for 1,000 years. Let me emphasize it. 1,000 years. Empires like Aztec rose and fell during this time. Generations of girls mutilated for some twisted version of beauty. It didn't officially get banned until the early 20th century, around the 1910s to 1940s, depending on the region. But by then, millions of women had already lived and died with lotus feet. Even after the ban, some families kept doing it in secret, because old habits die hard. Crinoline. It started as layers and layers of stiff fabric like horsehair and linen, but eventually evolved into a legit steel hoop skirt by the 1850s. Women were out strolling through the park with a metal exoskeleton under their dresses. These hoops, called cage crinolines, were revolutionary for one reason: they were lighter than layers of fabric. Suddenly, women could have that bell-shaped silhouette without carrying 15 pounds of petticoats. "Oh, finally," they said, and then proceeded to get stuck in every doorway for the next 30 years. On paper, this was a win. You got ventilation, your legs didn't have to suffer under 5 blankets of fabric, and you got that perfect wide-hip Victorian silhouette. For God's sake, I got stuck again. This stupid human in this stupid dress. Why is it always me? Sitting down in a crinoline was practically a geometry problem. They would have to kind of hover and hope your bones figured it out on the way down. If a gust of wind hit just right, woman be airborne like Mary Poppins. There were actual reports of women being blown into rivers. She just wanted to go to church, and then she drifted down the Thames. The biggest threat wasn't embarrassment or broken furniture. The real enemy was fire. Crinolines were made with highly flammable materials, cotton, tulle, sometimes even flammable resins. Pair that with wide skirts sweeping over candles, fireplaces, gas lamps, basically any Victorian home. Women were literally bursting into flames. One estimate in the 1860s said that about 3,000 women in England alone died from crinoline fires. Oh no! Her dress caught fire again! Well, she should have known better than to walk near the tea candles. Guess we're down to 4 bridesmaids. Even Queen Victoria's daughter got set ablaze during a fancy soiree. She survived, but the message was clear. These skirts are a full-blown fire hazard, but still, women need them. Eventually, by the late 1860s, crinolines fell out of favor. Partly because women were sick of catching on fire, and partly because the fashion started shifting toward the bustle. Basically, still ridiculous, but with all the drama focused in the back like a peacock with a secret. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching.